Welcome to Thunder Nerds. I'm Brian Hinton.
I'm Janelle Pizarro.
And I'm Frederick Philip Von Weiss. And thank you for consuming the Thunder Nerds, a conversation with the people behind the technology that love what they do.
And do tech good.
Boom. Yeah. Tech. Before we get started, let's go ahead and quickly thank our sponsor for this episode. We have Pantheon, pantheon.io. Pantheon makes things easy. They have a live dev and test environment. So if you are someone that needs to test some things like, when you try some marketing stuff with, say, Marketo pages or exit window, you could do that in your dev or your test environment before you push it live. It's a Git-based workflow. It's easy to add people to your to collaborate within their system. And they have 40 global pops, free HTTPS, and as we said, they give away free ice cream on Saturdays. Thank you, Pantheon, for sponsoring this episode. You rock.
Thank you, Pantheon.
Yeah, and thanks for the ice cream.
Yeah, I do too. Thanks,
yeah, well, they have soft serve. Wait till Saturday. It's one day away. You could have it. And also, let me remind everybody, if you can, please, if you are watching this on the YouTubes, please subscribe, hit the notification. That would be really neato, super cool. And if you could go to iTunes, write us a review, go to thundernerds.io/review, and you will be sent to the iTunes. Give us a review. And we actually have a wonderful review that I'm so happy about that Brian's going to read today.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, and I see what you did here, Frederick. Thank you.
I did nothing. I did not write this review. This came from someone that specifically wanted to express how much they enjoy our show, Brian.
Yeah, it's titled "Great Hosts with Great Attitudes!" Exclamation point! 5 stars. By Fade177. They said, really enjoyed my time on the podcast with Brian and Frederick. They were sincere and thoughtful, and we talked about all sorts of topics during our episode. It felt like a podcast about humans and not just about code. I love the goofy humor, Frederick, the sincere questions, and all the sound bites added to the podcast. So much creativity there. That's it.
There's a little bit more. Just a bit more. Come on.
P.S. Brian, my wife has a blog all about romance novel reviews at womandevoursbooks.com. Hope you enjoy it.
Oh, thank you so much. And I believe that was our one of our last guests, Kyle Shevlin. Thank you so much for writing that review, Kyle. And thank you so much for paying attention because, as you know, if you listen to the very last part of this show, how much Brian enjoys romance novels. And please send Brian your romance novel ideas. He very much enjoys it. We really appreciate that.
And never, ever tell a joke or anything while recording.
Also a good takeaway.
It's like the worst takeaway.
Yeah, that was quite a takeaway event, right?
It was an event.
Hi, everybody. We're going to be live at an event apart Orlando. So we're going to be interviewing some of the speakers there and talking to you all if you're there at the conference. And you know what? You should be there because we're giving you $100 off of these tickets for 2 or 3 day passes. All you need to use is the code AEA Nerds. That's AEA Nerds, and you will get $100 off of your ticket. So come see us.
Awesome. Yeah, please come down. We'll be in Orlando. It's going to be October 8th, 9th, and 10th. As Janelle said, we're going to be talking to a lot of the speakers, possibly most of the speakers, and we're also going to be talking to you, the conference goers. So come join us. Give Brian a big hug because he loves hugs.
I love hugs, yes.
He loves hugs and romance novels. With that being said, and without any further ado, and Brian interrupting us with his romance novel obsession, let's go ahead and welcome our guest. We have marketer, speaker, entrepreneur, founder, and CMO of Big C, and She Makes Things Happen, Andi Graham. Welcome to the show, Andi.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah, super happy to have you.
Thanks.
How's it going?
It's fabulous. If it wasn't 95 degrees, it'd be a slightly more fabulous, but we're getting there.
Nice. Where are you joining us from? I kind of feel like you are down the street from Mr. Brian Hinton.
I am. St. Petersburg, Florida, downtown.
Go to St.
Pete. Best city on earth.
That's what Brian says. Brian won't stop talking about it.
Yeah, just not right now. Yeah. You can have September.
And you're not actually from St. Pete. You came from La Crosse, Wisconsin. Is that correct?
That is true. Yes, I moved here in 2000. My grandfather had been stationed here in World War II in a strange twist, so my family vacationed here frequently, and I fell in love with it. And after I graduated from college, I packed up everything in a tiny little car and drove it down and rented a really crappy little apartment, and I've been here since then. So.
Oh, that's cool. So you kind of followed him. He was living here at the time, or?
My grandfather?
Yeah.
I guess I didn't fill that part in. He ended up snowbirding down here. So after World War II, he and his wife bought places in Fort Myers and then moved up to Palm Harbor and this kind of area, the west coast of Florida. So we came down to see him all the time. So.
And I bet probably it was such a grass is greener moment where you went from the super cold to the super hot, and you were like, oh, beach and sun, love it, give me it.
Yeah. I said, I know what living in the frozen tundra is, and so now let me try living in paradise. And now I've found myself really missing that sort of somewhere in the middle that I never got to live. So
because you thought out.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny, too, because we spoke to somebody with a similar name to you that might even share blood, Adam Hune, and he was talking about how he made the trip, and he actually, from, if memory serves me right, he kind of followed you over to the Floridas.
Yeah, he did. So I moved down here in 2000, and he and his wife got married in 2005. At that point, I had only met his wife twice. I was like the last weird bridesmaid, you know, the one who's like down on the end after her 7 best friends were in the wedding. And they told me at the wedding that they were thinking of either immediately starting a family or moving to Florida. And, you know, when you think about Adam and I have a 3-year difference in our ages. So he was a freshman in high school when I was a senior. And after that, I moved away. So I didn't know him as an adult at all. And so then he tells me that he's moving to the city that I live in. And obviously I will be his only friend. And I'm thinking, I don't know you. I don't know your wife, but I'm sure it's going to be great. It'll be super fun. So I found them the cheapest possible apartment. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you have a blood connection, and having somebody that you grew up with, you know, you love, they stabbed you. It's you definitely trust. That forms trust.
It was, yes. We had a really fun time. They moved down, immediately fit into our whole group of friends that I already had sort of established down here. We got him a job working with a friend of ours right away. He hated it. So I started bringing him into the office once I started Big C, and actually had him, he was fitting his work days into 4 days, and then he would come into my office on Fridays and start sort of basically interning for us and picking up web dev projects and learning to code. So, which has turned out quite well for him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like we have to address the stabbing. Otherwise, our listeners are
we don't just go right past the stabbing. We have to address that.
I feel like we do. So tell the story. There's an interesting story.
Yeah, it's not super interesting, but
stabbing usually are interesting.
Terrible little brother, and he got very angry with me once and stabbed me with a pencil in my knee. And when I woke up in the morning,
what did you do?
I don't remember, but I'm sure it was more awful than anything he did to me. So everything I did to him was more awful than anything he did to me. So, and I regret it now, but
you woke up and
my whole leg was locked up and wouldn't bend. And my parents used to make us go to church on Sunday mornings, and I had to limp into church, and I couldn't put any weight on it. And I don't know if pencils were lead back in 1984, but I felt like it might have been lead. So, but my whole leg was locked up. And so we had to go to the emergency room, and they dug it out and gave me stitches. And that was, I still have a tiny little scar.
Did he get in trouble?
Probably not, because my parents knew that I had probably egged it on in some way. So
it's all her fault, not his. Not our beautiful boy.
Figuring it out.
Yeah. It was probably self-defense. I think we had a stand your ground rule at our house.
Well, how apropos then you came to Florida?
I fit right in, yeah.
Do you mind if we jump into a little bit of your education?
Sure.
You went to school for some marketing, some fine arts, some more marketing. Do you mind taking us through that journey and why you decided to take marketing in the first place, and then you took marketing in the strategic communications in the University of South Florida?
I'll keep it as short as I can. I went to school on a full scholarship for advertising to the University of Minnesota at Mankato. And advertising was not what I thought it was going to be. I was expecting to build beautiful campaigns and learn graphic design and do all the creative aspects. And instead it was in the business department. So I was taking finance and statistics and all the things that I absolutely 100% value now as an entrepreneur, but that I hated as a student. And so what I loved was I took all these sociology classes where I learned about, like, you know, the culture and how different things influenced human behavior. And that's what I loved about advertising, was like how those elements of pop culture and the elements that you could create purposefully can influence culture and human behavior. So changed my major to sociology and minored in advertising. I started working in advertising. I was working in marketing at Eckerd College, which is a small private university down here. And I was doing a lot of their marketing. I had, by this point, taught myself graphic design, and I taught myself to code because I wanted to tweak the fun little GeoCities websites that I was building. And I had learned, you know, how to change hex values. And then I was learning HTML, and then CSS was becoming a thing. And I was teaching myself that. And so I started grabbing those projects at the college. When you work at a college or a university, you can often take classes for free. So I took advantage of that and did the Bachelor's of Fine Arts doing pottery and visual art. So that was just for fun.
Heck yeah, good for you. That's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, when you're in your 20s, there's not a lot to do at night except for go drinking. And so I thought, my parents were teachers, so education was always something that was a part of our lives. So I just went to school straight through until I was 30, and then I finished.
Were your parents very proud of you that you made this effort through school and you had so much education since you brought that point up?
Maybe. I think I've always been somebody who just participates. And so it was another thing I was participating in. You know, I'd always start things and not finish them, and start things and not finish them. And that's just kind of the person I am. I think my daughter's taking in those footsteps as well. So it was just another thing I was a part of.
What grade did your parents teach, and did you attend any of their classes? Or
yeah, so the fun part of growing up in a small city is that your parents teach all of your friends and know all of their backgrounds and who's good and who's bad and why. My mom was an elementary school teacher her entire life. She actually won the Teacher of the Year for the entire state of Wisconsin one year, so she was you know, wonderful at what she did. And then my dad taught at middle school on the north side of the city until the year that I started high school, when he transferred to be the art teacher at the high school that I went to. So not only did he know every single person my age at the north side, he knew every single person at my high school on the south side. So there was not a boy I could date that my dad did not know something about in the entire city. It was not great. So, but luckily everybody loved my dad. My dad is like the cool teacher that everyone buys shots for when we go out in the city, you know, when we're home. So he was the cool teacher, and everybody would come up to me and, I love your dad. I love your dad. And everybody still loves my dad. My dad's the party animal that everybody adores. So
that's awesome.
That's good. Yep.
So what level of coding do you know now? Are you on the same level as Adam, or?
Nope. So I stopped writing code. I started the business. I was a front-end designer and developer, and that's what I did. And so I would do all of that work. I was really more of, now that I look at what I did, I'm better at like content structuring and content strategy. I'm a good writer. And so I was good at building websites because I could understand how to take what a client was telling me and structure it into something where they were like, whoa, I can't believe this can come out of it. It wasn't just, I can make things pretty. You know, it wasn't just, I can write the code to do these things. I knew how to put the elements together. So it didn't take me long when I started the business to hire a better designer than I was, and then hire back-end developers to do what I was doing. And I still would do the front-end development piece of things. But I probably stopped writing code right when preprocessors became popular. So I stopped right before we started using SAS or LESS or any of those things. So I actually used one of our hackathons about 2 years later to teach myself those things so that I could still go in and make the tweaks and update websites. But then I just realized it's probably not worth my time anymore to stay on top of it. And we were kind of rolling into marketing more than we were web dev. So we still do tons of web dev, but it's a bigger piece of marketing contracts now. So
it's really cool that you guys do hackathons over there. Everyone that we've interviewed from Big C has always like raved about the hackathons. What kind of inspired you to want to start doing that and giving it a go?
Yeah, so I had a team of really, I like to call them Ferrari developers who always were better than building marketing websites. You know, they wanted to be doing cooler stuff. And so they, I don't know if you've heard of the Ship It Days concept, but Atlassian, the company that has HipChat and Jira and all those things, runs this thing called Ship It Days. And so we had started talking about running Ship It Days at Big C, where we would all choose projects. They had to be shippable within 24 hours, you know, that sort of model. And so this was our 5th year of doing it this year. We just did it in August. And it's really interesting because we had to roll in project managers and even our office managers and, our executive assistant and people who don't, content strategists, we had to roll in people who don't build things. So it's been really neat. It's been this huge cross-section of tangible physical projects, code-based projects, updating weird processes, just, designing and doing and doing neat things. So it's really fun. It's a lot of beer and hanging out and not sleeping and people really kind of staying and hanging out all night. But honestly, we shipped more projects this year than I ever thought, than we ever have in the past. And some of them were intense. I don't know if Autumn talked at all about them, but one of them was like a build your own adventure geo fencing thing that
cool.
It was like, and you can play it on Alexa. So you can tell Alexa where you want to go. And they used all these map points all over St. Pete and it would know where you were going.
Oh, wow.
And our content strategist built out this spreadsheet of all the possible scenarios you could take from each location. And it was just this matrix of thousands of different things that could happen and where you could go. And it's all built into this Google Maps API. It's very cool.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. Have you gotten any takeaways from it that you found interesting that you wouldn't have discovered if you hadn't done that?
Well, it's been a chance for some people to play with different technologies that we wanted to employ on client projects. So it's some of that. We built a weather-based programmatic ad server so that it looks for if it's raining within 5 miles of a client location, it'll start serving ads for coming in and that sort of thing. So those things are obviously useful, but for the most part, it's fun. And some of it's like fixing up the office. We built plant shelves and somebody designed a huge chalkboard calendar, or we got fish. I don't know. It's been, there's weird stuff and there's fun stuff and there's just things you kind of want to do during the workday but don't have time. So
yeah, that makes sense. Or that playroom ad that I was talking about.
Yeah. I did a cool little. Yep. Been neat.
What we would should go into, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to ask you about, is Big C. If you don't mind me asking, what was the Phil Collins, the genesis of Big C?
So Phil Collins, I like that. Okay, 2 things. I lived on the water on Madeira Beach, which is a little beach community on the west coast of Florida. And I lived in this wonderful house that was right on the water, and I had a desk. So the year that I incorporated Big C, I was sitting at this desk that looked out over dolphins literally jumping off my dock. And it was just blissful and amazing. And having come from Minnesota and Wisconsin, I couldn't believe that this was my life. So I knew I wanted something ocean related. And then the other piece of it that's kind of funny is one of the first websites I built commercially was for a friend of mine who was screen printing t-shirts in his and his, like, you could hardly even walk in there. It was just all boxes of t-shirts, and he had some major retailers like Urban Outfitters selling his shirts, and he was selling huge batches of shirts, but we built this whole e-commerce website that no one knew was just him in his tiny little apartment, because the web used to be this great equalizer, and you could sort of build, if you had the technology, something that made you as big and as credible as the big boys. And 10 years ago, it was still apropos to pretend you were big, right? It wasn't cool to be small. And so he had these things on his website. It was like, for wholesale orders, call this number. And for, these orders, call this number. And they all just went to his cell phone. It was all just him answering the phone. So it's kind of this little fish, big sea. I was doing a lot of small business stuff. And then the water tie-in and all those things. So then I met my husband, and his father was dying of cancer, and we had to talk about the Big C other meaning and kind of toggle around that. So I've kind of dealt with that as being the secondary meaning of it for a very long time, which is not the greatest. So I think I would take the name back if I could, but I do like the Genesis story. So.
Yeah, I love that whole thing of, you came from that kind of winter environment, and you're really enjoying the tropical heat and what we have here, and then the dolphins. That's beautiful. I love that origin story. And and it's not just about Florida. Now you have other locations, right?
Well, we just opened an office in Colorado Springs. Yes. So that's the big C for Colorado, I guess. I don't know.
You're call it Big C open West, up locations with C's, right? The next one's California.
Yeah. No, I'm just looking at ski locations. Where can I ski, and how close can I open an office that I can fly to from?
Park City.
Yep.
Anchorage.
Yeah. No.
Too cold.
Yeah. Too much.
Oh, Canada.
What? Canada.
Yeah.
That was awkward silent moment.
I guess not Canada. Something wrong with Canada?
It's just,
what I love on that note, what I love about Big C is the variety of people working there, including an employee named Peter. Which is interesting. He has a nice about page as well. And what's the story of Peter Kuhn?
Yeah, we Adam. That's my brother's dog, and he has been bringing him in since he was like 2 months old. So he's kind of grown up in the office as our office.
Wow.
He's there every single day. So we actually have 5 or 6 dogs that come in on a regular basis. Yesterday, we just put up an Instagram yesterday. We had 3 here yesterday.
I saw that. That looked really cool.
They're so cute. We have this new little dog, Bax. That's the cutest thing in the universe. He's my favorite, but don't tell Pete. Or my own dog, Frank, who I also bring in. So, but yeah, we've always had dogs in the office. It's the office we're in now has, I guess you'd call them laminate floors. The office we were in had concrete floors, and so we've never had any reason not to. But now we have like gates, and we kind of have some rules around not having 5 or 6 in the office on the same day because it becomes a little much. So, but
that's such a great way to deal with stress, help people relax. It makes it more of a home environment, and people just are more productive, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, our whole office is very homey. I think, but that people, if you came in here, you would recognize that everybody here has taken ownership over the space themselves. We're not a design agency with a highly designed, sterile environment. Everybody has made their space their own, and their stuff hanging and mounted and, everywhere. So it's very much a homey environment.
And speaking of that homey environment, you also employ someone that from a podcast that I was just listening to 3 minutes ago is a confirmed child stabber that you work with.
My brother?
Oh, yes, that guy.
Yeah. Yes,
yeah,
I do.
So cool that you get to work with your brother.
It is so cool that I get to work with him. Yeah, he's been here 6.5, 7 years now.
Oh, I love that. You guys have a good relationship. Like, how does that work?
It's actually kind of funny because so Big C, we merged with another agency 3 years ago. And so I actually have 2 business partners now. And so what happened with that was I got to move into the CMO role. So I manage all the content and creative and marketing. And then I have a partner who actually manages all the technical side of things. So I got to stop being my brother's boss, which was fantastic. So he doesn't report to me, but the funny piece of that is that even though I see him walk in and walk out every day, we'll go entire weeks without talking.
Really? That's so weird.
On Friday, and I'm like, "What time are you guys coming over for dinner?" Okay, we'll see you tomorrow. And we see.
It's all because of that stabbing, isn't it?
It is. I will never let it go. Yeah.
I have a really maybe fun question. Did you get the mustache tattoo so you could do a business? So you could be like, I'm doing a business. I'm very fancy.
Yes, take me seriously. No, it's because I'm a female in a very male-dominated industry, and I didn't know how else to fit in. So
I love it. That's
no,
so
I'm just kidding. It's actually our family tattoo. Did you see Adam's as well?
Yeah.
No.
Yes. So
oh,
my brother,
that's the thing. Does your husband have that tattoo?
He does. And in the ironic twist, the most impressive person in our family who has it is my father, who has no other tattoos and has always hated our tattoos. And he has the finger mustache tattoo. So.
Oh, I love that.
My gosh.
That's
amazing.
What was the catalyst for that? What led to, who got the first one?
Yeah, what's the story?
you want to know the real story? It was a drunken bar crawl that turned into like 3 people went and got it. And then 6 months later, 3 more people went and got it. And then 6 months later, 3 more people went and got it. And it's become, we have, I think, 12 or so really close friends and family members that have it. So
happy day. That's awesome.
It makes for good wedding photos. We all have them. So
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it helps you do the business. So
absolutely. Yeah. All the time. Yeah. Like
when anybody gives you some kind of answer that you're like,
Have you ever seen BoJack Horseman by any chance?
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's 2 children standing up on top of each other, pretending to be an adult. I mean, I feel like that would be like a really great asset for them.
Yeah.
To be like, oh well, we're doing big things over here.
A very familiar cartoon motif. Yeah.
I need to. Maybe I should bust it out at my next working event when I'm feeling uncomfortable. We'll break the ice a little bit, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. You take all your pro photos that way.
Yeah.
Speaking about being a pro and being a CMO, I was wondering what your day-to-day as the CMO over there is.
That's a fun story. I don't know. It's always different, but like this. Well, that's not that fun story. I shouldn't say that. So, I mean, a lot of times it's meeting with new clients and consulting and writing proposals, right? Like, I know, it's so super lame.
I'm so excited.
It's not exciting. No, I get to. I mean, like today, I met with another consultant in the area who we just wanted to get coffee. That maybe it's a good referral network for us. I'm writing proposals. I do a lot of biz dev because I am the owner of the business, so that's kind of what the role is. I'm reviewing thousands of quarterly strategies for all of our clients right now. So all of our teams, because it's the end of September, are putting together quarterly strategies. So I'm reviewing documents. I review all the creative that goes out. So I look at everybody's like, here's the homepage we designed for fill in the blank. What do you think? How should we change it? Yada, yada. Consult on UX, that sort of thing. So
yada, yada. I love that.
Yeah,
a lot of lunch.
Not in the Elaine way, but yada, yada, yada.
No, absolutely. I get it. No. The Elaine way. Yeah. 100%, yeah. I'm a child of Seinfeld.
Yeah, Seinfeld's so good.
Yep.
Favorite Seinfeld episode?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. I can't not even remember from now. I'm the worst. I will watch a movie and then I will watch the movie the next day. And my husband's like, we literally watched that yesterday. And I have no idea. Like,
okay.
Really? I'll have to get like a half hour in and I'm like, God, I remember this storyline.
Even easier. Favorite Seinfeld character?
Well, George Costanza is my favorite Seinfeld character.
Oh, okay. I think I'm an Alan. Or excuse me, Elaine.
Yeah. Really. I like Elaine's kind of annoying to me. I just love
that's why I like her.
Oh, really?
I used to have one of those desks that had like
so annoying.
Yeah, we have so much in common.
And I used to take naps under my desk when I was working at Becker College. So, which is George Costanza's move. So we have a little bit of a kinship.
I like George too. My favorite episode is actually about George when he quits having sex and he ends up like learning another language, becomes super smart, and then when he does sleep with someone again, he's stupid again. It's like it's hilarious. Great episode.
Funny. Speaking about all these really high-end inspirational Seinfeld characters, why don't we talk about some actual human beings? Do you have any kind of people that you look up to, rather, that you find inspirational on a daily?
That's an interesting question. What's interesting about that question for me is how that has changed over the past 5 years as the agency has become more established and successful. Because the people 5 years ago that I would answer this question with are people that I now share a room with on a regular basis when I'm speaking or when I'm at conferences and things like that. And so it's been this weird transition for me to stand amongst these people I consider heroes and say, oh my God, look where I am, look what's happening right now. So I've learned from a lot of those, like Greg Hoy, who owns Happy Cog, has been a great, person to get to know and has become a good friend. And folks in the industry, Cameron Mall, who I used to just worship as a designer, and I see him a lot now at conferences and stuff like that too. So there's a lot of people in that sort of category. My stuff that I sort of pay attention to and listen to now is really a lot more like business focused. And so I don't know that I've never been one for heroes. There's people who I follow and listen to and I like. Right
Glenn
now,
Beck, right?
Yeah. I don't need any more triggers today.
She's like, like fight me, bro.
In my limit triggers, yeah. No, I've been like, I listen to a lot of like Tim Ferriss stuff. I'm really into all his biohacking and crazy, you know, all that crazy stuff that he does. So we're way onto like the chaga and the mushroom tea and hacking your body and brain chemistry and things like that, which is super fun. So
yes, Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
Love it.
You know, I wanted to ask you about, and I don't know if you are a person that goes into Marketo. Do you use it at all?
No, we're HubSpot partners.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was
So
going
we
to
do
ask
a
you
lot
what
of
you thought
HubSpot.
about the acquisition that's coming up. It sounds
have
pretty
opinions.
definite.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
great.
I think it already happened. Yeah. So the three big competitors in that space are HubSpot, Marketo, and Pardot, right?
Yeah.
And HubSpot and Salesforce had a very close relationship for a very long time, to the point where HubSpot actually had to non-compete with Salesforce, a very rich CRM side of their business. And then Salesforce kind of saw the writing on the wall once HubSpot went public, and HubSpot bought Pardot. I'm sorry, Salesforce saw the writing on the wall. Salesforce bought Pardot. So Salesforce no longer needed HubSpot. They released from their contract, but HubSpot was under a non-compete until very recently. They recently released all kinds of sales features that will absolutely compete with Salesforce. So now HubSpot has this kind of all-in-one product that's a mixture of what Salesforce and Pardot have going on. So those two, to me, are like these kind of sales and marketing powerhouses, and that's great. What I think is really interesting about the Adobe acquisition of Marketo, and I hate to say this because the one thing that we've always done with our HubSpot clients that we talk about that we do a little bit differently is that we don't sacrifice great design for publishing and publishing and publishing, which is what most HubSpot that's their approach, is just like publishing content to get it out into the world and not really caring about design. And so for us, we've always been very careful to maintain good brand standards and maintain good design consistency as best we can within, you know, budgets and limitations and all those things. It's been important to us. Adobe brings sort of a new piece to Marketo, and I'm curious if they're going to really become the sort of designers friendly marketing platform, and which would be really interesting because HubSpot does not do that well. Like, we have to really bastardize those templates, and we really have to bastardize their platform to do what we want, and which means we're pulling in a lot of non-HubSpot pieces to make things work the way and look the way that we want them to do. So I would love to see it go that way. I don't want to learn
plugin, don't you?
We do, yeah. One of our developers built the WordPress Gravity Forms HubSpot plugin, which is used by some 3,000 websites across the country. So
win.
Yeah, if we got paid for it, it'd be a huge win. But we just, you know, we just support it on a daily basis for free. So
yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. I was at the Marketo conference in San Francisco last year, and it was pretty neat. And some people were talking about things, but nothing like that. And I got to see Queen Latifah. That was pretty interesting.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
I don't know why she was there, but she was really awesome.
HubSpot does a thing like that too, where it's their huge users conference. There's like 20,000 people attend, and Michelle Obama spoke at it last year. I mean, it's never someone small. Wow. It's always like huge. So nice. Anna Kendrick, yeah, it was great.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Dozens of people like that.
You know, I think we should also talk about some of the things that you do. You founded the Tampa Bay chapter for Girls Develop It, which
Girl Develop It.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting organization. Do you mind talking a little bit about that?
Sure. Janelle, do you know Girl Develop It?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think Janelle has some follow-up questions on this.
You do, yeah. So I actually had, I have been involved with the front-end design conference down here in St. Pete, but Dan, the guy who runs it, is a very good friend of mine. And so, yeah, I've been at every single one for every single year because here I am in St. Pete. Yay, right? Yeah, exactly. So, so Dan's a good friend of mine. And so through him, I met Mina Markham. I think we spoke she and I both spoke the same year. And so we met that year. And Mina had just started the one that was in that year. She was in Austin, Texas, I believe. Maybe not Austin, wherever she was in Texas. I don't remember. Dallas, Fort Worth? I don't know. But so she was just talking about the organization and how great it was, yada, yada. And so I was looking for some way to do something similar. So I sort of just dove in and said, let's start this. They have an interesting sort of onboarding process, which they waived because of who I was in like the community, I guess. I guess most of the people who try to start it are some like a 22-year-old junior developer who are just learning, which is great, but they want to make sure you're going to stick with it and things like that. So we got it off the ground really fast. I ran it for the first year. I had one other co-founder that helped me out who's running it still now today. So I handed it off to her and the 2 people who are still running it today, and they've got a really great chapter going down here. So it happened. I think it helps that I had connections because of other board positions I have. And that was like, we have just a awesomely supportive development community in St. Pete. I think it's fantastic. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you're definitely part of like, the old Iron Yard, now the new Suncoast Developers Guild, which is super exciting. So it was pretty awesome. I got to hear you speak when one of the last couple of classes at the Iron Yard, and it was pretty fantastic. So yeah, whatchamacallit. So how does that work? How do you get into like being part of the community and being such a driving force of like, this is what we do, and how can I make things better for, not just us, but like tech as a whole and St. Petersburg as a whole, and maybe even Florida as a whole?
Well, I think people need women on boards, and especially in the tech industry. And so they're looking for anybody who has a connection to tech, and they're asking. That's happening constantly. That said, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a participator. And so I'm always looking for ways to connect myself and to get involved in things that I care about. Tech is one of those things, and bringing it to women and making women feel empowered. I had so many friends who were like, I would love to do this. I don't even know where to begin, And I'm like, come to my How the Web Works class. It's 2 hours. You're going to learn about what HTTP means, we're going to have fun. So, so that was part of it. But yeah, I mean, that was it. It's a desire to get involved. And then it's a desire to have representation in an industry that's, mostly male dominated for sure. So
I think at that point you should have did one of these.
You're like,
with the mustache.
Then they would have known I was a woman. That was the problem.
What's one of the best takeaways you got from that, as far as maybe someone's success that came back to you and said, hey, thank you so much, Andi. That really meant a lot to me. And now I'm here, and I used to be there.
Yeah. I don't know that I could pinpoint like a specific example. I just know that a lot of the women who came through either learned it wasn't for them because they didn't understand how much went into doing that, or they took a series of 2 or 3 classes, and some of them are volunteers now, or they took some of the Girl Develop It courses and then ended up students at the Iron Yard, which was really kind of neat as well. So it was a neat sort of feeding grounds for that. It's been kind of interesting watching the Iron Yard go through, at least here at the St. Pete campus, go through the transition to the nonprofit version that is, in my opinion, a superior version, and helping them get through that is going to be challenging, but they've done a great job. They've got 2 full cohorts running right now, so that'll keep going.
Awesome.
So there's a space for alternative education. I speak at the classes at USF and at SPC, and the stuff that I talk about, these students haven't even learned about. And I'm thinking, I haven't even coded for 6 years. I haven't written code, and I'm like, this is crazy. So it's very hard to get curriculum passed in higher ed. And so these code schools and startups have a really nice little niche carved out for them.
Yeah, and I wonder if it'll ever catch up, if the big universities will ever be like, hey, maybe we actually need to have updated curriculum instead of
well, it's that bureaucracy to get through.
Yeah, it is. In the accreditation and how those things have to happen, and on how a curriculum has to be approved before it can be delivered. That stuff is important. You have to maintain standards, but I don't know. I mean, there has to be. There are new models of education happening everywhere.
Well, I mean, how did Iron Yard do it? Because they were accredited. Like, how did
they're not accredited in the same way. So their accreditation, there's a standards board that manages higher ed. That's private higher education. That's different than. Yeah, so their accreditation board is a different process than like a university accreditation. They go through a SACS, a Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, or something like that. They don't. That's like the highest cream of the crop. So when you look at like, I worked at Eckerd College for long enough to learn a little bit about accreditation, and the piece of it that people don't understand is that like schools like Phoenix and for-profit Kaiser University and things like that, They could never be accredited by SACS because they don't meet the financial requirements and the curriculum and the standards and all those things. So they built their own accreditation board. So they call themselves nationally accredited because they built their own accreditation board that just allows anything to get through. So what you want actually in a university setting or college is regionally accredited. Those are the actual boards that come in and spend weeks on your campus reviewing every single thing that you're doing and whether it's worth its salt or not. So.
That's interesting. It's cool that it's nice that they do that in the sense that they want to make sure it's thorough, but and that the school is teaching things properly and that their curriculum is good. But it sounds like it's like a mixture of bureaucracy and trying to do the right thing, but maybe not. So.
Yeah, it is a mix of those things, but it's also maintaining, they look at your financials and make sure that you're not stealing money or using money from student tuition to do things you shouldn't be doing and running separate businesses with it, or, those all kinds of things. So
yeah, you could say that they shine a spot on it, right?
Give me like a spotlight.
Oh my God. Thank you, Frederick.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, I didn't even think about it that way.
Whoa. We're getting towards the end of our show and we have a few final questions. Mine's a spotlight question. It's a group question. The intent is kind of to shine the light on each one of us to kind of like, hey, let's find out more about you as a person and things you've done and things like that. And this week, it's a group question, like I said, so you go last as the guest.
Okay.
And it's something kind of crazy that you've done that, like, it could be something stupid, something like afterwards you're like, why did I do that? Or like afterwards you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did.
Oh, this one should be super easy for you though.
Me? Well, I mean, it is because I have something in mind. I came up with a question. So yeah.
That's what I meant.
Mine is, I've done a lot of crazy, stupid things, but to me, it still stands out as kind of crazy that I did it is when I skydived and I jumped it's not even the fall, it's the stepping out of the plane that was like, why did you're at the edge and you do a tandem for the first few times and the guy's like, okay, and the count of 3, you're gonna push off, and you're at the edge. You're looking down. You're like, wait, what am I doing? So that's mine. It was pretty crazy. A very fun experience. I recommend it to anyone. Just do it. It's pretty safe. They have like multiple shoots, so if one fails, there's another one. So, but that's mine. Whoever wants to go next.
Oh, can I go? Can I go?
Sure.
Today, I guess it's topical, slightly topical. I don't know. Today, I wanted to try that. Have you guys heard of the cryotherapy?
Yes.
Yeah, so you go into the chamber and they cool it down. It's like minus whatever degrees, and it's supposed to be like super cold. And you're in there for 3 minutes, and you come out and you feel super refreshed. And I was like, oh, a few people at the office have been talking about it, so I thought I'd give it a try. Went in, jumped in. I'm ready for the cold, and I was like, when's it gonna get cold? And it's like, okay, this is good, but I'd like to freeze a little bit. And I was like, and they were like, okay, you're done. I'm like, that's it. It was nothing.
It was just an air conditioned room.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to be like super cold.
It is. I think you did it wrong.
You did it wrong.
I'm an actual brick oven as it is. So I felt like, oh, I feel nice and relaxed. This is nice and cool. It felt like just an air conditioned room to me. And I told the technician, I was like, can this go colder? Like 50 or 60 degrees colder? Because I'm not getting anything from this.
Yeah.
And I came out and I was like, okay, well, that was $40. But yeah, so that was the crazy goofy thing I did today.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
My crazy thing is one time when I was 18 or 17, I decided that I didn't want to buy a car like a normal person, and I bought a motorcycle, and I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. Well, all 3 variations of my bike. But I think the crazier thing for me isn't the fact that I got a motorcycle. It's the way that I had to learn how to ride a motorcycle. I couldn't reach the foot pedals, and we had to the weird thing about it is that you can't you have to learn how to ride a motorcycle with completely covered feet, and I didn't own shoes that were completely covered because I live in Florida.
Yeah.
So I was like, the only pair of like coverings that I had that were completely covered were heels. So I was like, well, yeah. So I was the very first person to get my motorcycle license in heels. So in Orange County.
Nice.
That's a good story.
Yeah. So it's my
like
crazy
that.
That's good.
I'm with you on the no covered feet.
What is that? You're in Florida.
I ride my bike in it. I would run in it if in my flip flops if they'd stay on.
Yeah.
Foot prison.
All right, Andy, your turn.
All right, when I was like 19, I bought an Isuzu Trooper and converted it into a camper such that you could fold the back seat down. And I had this piece of plywood that hinged with a like pull-out bed mattress that would fold. And every night for about 2 months, I traveled across the US and I used to have to make the bed, right? But that meant I had to move all the crap out of the back and into the front seats so I could make the bed. And I wasn't paying for campgrounds. I would sometimes just be sleeping in a neighborhood and I would wake up to like the dad getting the boat ready with his kids in the front yard. And I'm like crawling out of the Isuzu Trooper and I'm 19 and I'm like disoriented because it's 7 a.m. and I don't know where I am and somewhere in Oregon. And then the other funny part of that was I also didn't have enough money with me. And at one point ran out of gas in the middle of the desert where it was 116 degrees. Jeez. And the rude people who lived at the only trailer that I could find nearby, this was before cell phones existed, wouldn't let me wait in the house with him while I waited for the gas people to come help me. And I had to sit in my 116-degree car in the middle of the desert for about 3 hours and wait for gas.
Oh, man.
Wow.
What a horrible human.
Fun choices we make. But it was a great experience. We drove
I imagine.
Vancouver to Tijuana only because we could drink beer in Vancouver and Tijuana legally.
Nice. I love that story. Nice. Yep. Yeah. To be young. Well, this is the section where we do a lightning round. We just kind of go through some questions that we might not have the opportunity to ask you, some things that are topical and things off the top of our head that we like to ask fast. Questions. It's super fast. It's just quick questions, and we'll all take turns and we'll rotate. And I'm going to go first. Your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Oh, as a kid? Oh, God, The Simpsons. Mostly influenced by my brother.
How do you involve yourself? Like, how do you teach someone how to involve themselves in things?
Pay attention to meetup.com, pay attention to Facebook events, show up, and ask how you can help.
Pizza toppings of choice.
Mushrooms and pineapple.
Favorite cartoon as an adult?
Adventure Time.
Nice. Win.
Favorite beer?
Oh, gosh. I've been into sours lately, but I have to go with New Glarus. Anything by New Glarus. Strawberry rhubarb has been my favorite lately. Belgian Red's really good.
Nice. Cereal of choice.
I didn't. You glitched out for a second.
Sorry. Cereal of choice.
Oh, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. That's an easy one.
Nice. Good. That is a good one.
What is your favorite thing about yourself?
Okay, that's a weird question. I think it's a personality thing. It's not it's that I like to get involved in things. I don't feel shy about asking how I can get involved in introducing myself to people and putting myself out there. I think that's been an asset.
I think you answered that weird question perfectly well.
Thanks.
Yeah. Excuse my weirdness.
If you could be any comic book villain, who would you be?
I don't know any comic book villain, so that is a terrible question for me. I have no concept of comic books at all. I know.
Depression.
Does like Betty and Veronica count? Because I'll say
they totally count. They were in Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, which is a comic book, so they count. Really? They were the villains in that one, so it's fine.
They were?
Oh, yeah, okay. Because they're good.
Okay.
Oh, jeez. Have you ever stepped on a nail?
No.
she said that.
Really?
I did have a nail. I stepped on a bumblebee once. It felt like a nail. Yeah.
Ow.
Ever get stabbed in the knee?
Check. Yes, I have.
Janelle.
Janelle?
Was it? No, sorry. My phone started ringing. And
sorry, guys. I'll be back in a minute. No, I'm not doing nothing. Just talking with Brian.
I can't hear words.
One episode I have to call and order a pizza. The show.
Don't you do that online? You don't need to call.
Janelle.
It's more personal.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Apparently, you walk into your house, Andy, and it's dark, and you see a ghost. What do?
Turn the lights on.
Okay, fair enough.
Probably scream. Yeah.
Whoa.
Weird echo. Oh, wasn't me.
Test. Okay, so it's Janelle. I had a question. Oh, what if the lights don't turn on?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd probably turn around and walk back out.
What is a romance novel that you could suggest to Brian?
The Notebook.
The Notebook. Everybody, make sure you get your romance novel suggestions to Brian.
No.
At Mr. Brian Hinton on Twitter.
And I would not say that The Notebook is a romance novel. It's by Nicholas Spark. It's like
I've never read it. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't read.
I cried. That movie was depressing. I wouldn't say it's a romance. I would say it's more of like a super downer.
Tragedy.
Yeah.
I'm into historical fiction, so I don't read a lot of romance.
Favorite historical fiction.
Oh gosh. Right now I'm reading A Gentleman in Moscow again. I started it, got halfway through, and I'm starting it over. So I've been into like
Netflix show.
Oh, right now I'm into Ozark.
Ooh, it's my turn. Stop skipping me.
Oh, sorry. My faux pas.
Have you read All the Light We Cannot See?
Yes.
It's a fantastic book. I love it.
Yes, I did read that book.
Janelle?
I think
Janelle is making a motion for our audio listeners that she wants to murder someone. We don't know what this means, but Janelle is apparently in some kind of weird phase. We'll get back to that. But yeah, so I think we're at the end of our at this point with our lightning round, and we would like to ask you if you have any kind of final words of wisdom that you would like to benevolently bestow upon our audience, if you will.
Hopefully deep and really meaningful.
Yes, please provide something with the felicity of your character.
We're waiting.
Okay, that's a lot of pressure.
No pressure, but seriously, this is important.
I don't have anything. I got nothing.
Oh God, we put too much pressure.
Yeah. That was too much pressure.
It's okay. You have provided so many great points and takeaways for us to digest, and we really appreciate your time. What is the best way that people could get a hold of you? Obviously, we'll put a bunch of links in the show notes, but if you could tell us some Twitter handles or some websites, places people could find out more about you.
Sure. So our business is bigc.co, bigsa.co, and I'm on Twitter at Andi Graham BSD, I think, right? And our Twitter handle is Big C. Yeah, that's about it. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Anybody else have some final anything they want to say? Janelle, do you want to go like this again?
I just don't have a functioning technology today.
I would like to say leave a review and Thunder Nerds.
Yeah.
thundernerds.io/review. Andi Graham, thank you so much for being on the show. Super appreciate it.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I had fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for our sponsors, Pantheon, for helping us out. Really appreciate it. And thanks, everybody. Again, toodles noodles.